Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to wherever you may be. Welcome to the iVend mobile webinar. I am your host for this specific webinar, Keith Morrison. I am the manager consulting for South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us at this time. I would just like to say it is so nice to go and see people. Wow, that is actually from quite far away. I can see I've got some people who are from right next door to me and people who are halfway across the world. So very nice to go and have you all join us for this webinar. At this time. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to put your hand up or to go or to ask it in the question section. I will do my best to go and answer them as quickly and as promptly as possible. Please also remember that there are other channels that you can go and get information from, such as the City Access Knowledge Portal, our various YouTube channels, the knowledge articles, and also things like the forums and people like me, your friendly local manager consulting. Now, without too much further ado, I would like to let's get the show on the road, as they say. So, first up, I suppose in any of these things would be the agenda. So, in this particular session, we have a bit of history. Why Mobile POS? What is it? What exactly is this thing, and how has it sprung upon us? After that, the prerequisites. iVend mobile setup and initialization, online, offline mode, transaction modes, customer selection, view and edit, transaction items, selection and edit, transaction screen, payments, preview transactions, and also some supported hardware. And just for you tonight, because we have a new version of the iVend mobile app actually out on the marketplace, there is actually a small new thing that I believe I can just give you a sneak preview of. So, moving on. Next, why Mobile POS? Well, it's quite simple, really. Access your business anytime, anywhere. That is the way things have gone. Everything has gone mobile, and there's no reason that Mobile POS should not go that way. And just because of that, it's designed to go to the actual customer, to go where the customer is making the decision. So rather than going and having to wait, you can actually go and get to the customer at that specific time when he is actually making the decision. And that brings me on to my first point, the ability to respond faster. So no more waiting either by the customer in a queue or us for the customer to come. They come directly to us. Next up, ease of use. Well, it has to be easy to use. In this day, in order to be on mobile, that is the way it is designed. It's the nature of the system. And because of that, it also, but it allows us as well to go and train people quicker, to get them to enter in information clearer into the system, and at the same time allow us to control it with better and greater accuracy. This allows us to do things like completing sales on the spot. And now this is one of the main functions where Mobile POS initially came in as a queue buster. We have since gone and expanded its role from being just from that quite simple one to being something that's actually that has got a much wider role within the actual omnichannel environment. And because of that, you can now use it to do things such as boosting sales. And this involves, as you will see, goes and ties in these previous points that I've mentioned. Because if you can respond faster in an easy to use way and complete a sale on the spot, then of course, if you catch you are going to go and increase your sales because you have caught your customer at the moment of decision. He hasn't had time to go and talk himself out. He hasn't had time to go and overthink the actual sale. He hasn't had time to go and walk away because he's bored. Right? He has. Right? You have actually caught him at that specific moment in time. So from there, we can also accelerate checkouts. Queue busting, like I've mentioned, is one, but you can also, but instead of having to go and wait in a queue, you can actually go and wander around, get the customer at the point when they're ready to go, and actually go when they're ready to go pay, and check them out, do the actual checkout right there and then. Of course, the system has to be responsive, and with us, we are now integrated part of iVend. This means that you can go and start transactions, for instance, on the terminal POS and complete them on the mobile POS, and vice versa as well. So, prerequisites. Now, what do we need to run this miracle of science? Okay, well, first off, iVend running in either plugged or unplugged. Really, which way it's running depends on how you'd want your system. iVend API is installed and connected with the iVend Enterprise or Store Server database, depending on your system landscape. And finally, and probably right up there with being most crucially, the iVend mobile app installed on either your iOS devices or your Android devices. So, setup and initialization. Now, we have a couple of points that we need to go through over here. So I'm going to go and quickly step out of the actual slide deck over here, and we can actually go and see how exactly we start going and setting up hardware, get your multiple language support, and also get your different modes and emails going. So over here in your iVend management console, one of the first points that we're going to need to go and actually set up are, like I mentioned, our APIs. So over here under communication settings, you'll see I actually list my API server over here. This is the area where I actually have my where I actually list my particular server address. This is in case my API server is on a separate server, right, as the case may be, depending once again on the layout of your network, or if it is on the local machine, like mine is. You can, at the moment, I'm running in mixed mode, so there is some slight doubling up of the actual system. But over here we have the so next point I will show you is something that you might need to consider for other parts of the system, and that is going and actually setting it up for the actual connection manager, configuration manager over here, the actual iVend API. Once again, this is where you can go and if you have multiple databases running, you can add them in here and start and stop each individual service for those databases as you might need to. Right. Once you have this set up over here, the next most important thing is to actually go and make sure that this is actually running. So from here, we can come along to our iVend API health check. Go and enter in either the full server address, or you can do what I'm going to do and enter in the IP address. And click check. Now, this is very important for a number of reasons, because there are certain programs and applications that will stop access to the APIs. Recently, we encountered such a situation with Skype. So sometimes you do need to be careful of these things and what exactly they're running and what they're doing in the background. Okay. Right, so the next point that we do need to go and actually set up as well, once we've got that going, is we actually need to set up our actual API server for our store. Now this once again depends on your landscape that you've got, and this is will also determine whether whether the actual mobile POS interacts with your enterprise server, or which store in fact it will actually interact with. I go down to retail configuration, to store, select my store, edit, and over here you will see I have my IP address set into the system. Once again, I have the similar options: enable SSL and full server address necessary. Okay, so now that we've gone and we've done that, let's go across and we can actually have a look at our iVend Mobile POS. Let's bring it up over here. There we go. Rotate it the right way around. And before we actually dive into the in-depth system, I just want to point out that the latest version that has been released is 2.4.1. This does include some features that were not included on 2.20. Let's go across to the setup screen. So over here, I have my server setting. So my initial settings over here, I can choose which sort of deployment I'm going to use. Am I going to do on-premise, iVend Cloud, or demo? Now, the demo setup over here is what the actual app comes with as default. It's a relatively limited database that is actually running on here, and it is used when it is set to demo mode, just to go and do some basic transactions and allow you to get an idea about what is actually going on in the app. Next up, I have my iVend Cloud. This is if you are connecting to the actual iVend Cloud itself. Otherwise, you can also connect on-premise, and this also depends on, once again, landscape of your network that you're connecting to. If you're connecting to a store server that is actually hosted on-premise, normally you would be connecting on-premise. As well, with the multitude of cloud solutions, there are options and there are times where you may be selecting on-premise, but still be connecting to a cloud. Initialize over the air. This will go and initialize the database over the air using the actual, so it will download over Wi-Fi, as opposed to using the import database functionality, where a small backup of the iVend database is taken and then imported into the actual device over here. That happens across over here. I go to IT administration, mobile database backup. I select my mobile POS. Go connect. And this will give you an idea of the actual database tables that are backed up and sent to the SQL database on the actual that is running within the actual app itself. So, and then from here we can then choose to back up and then restore if necessary. If you do want to see that, I can do that at a later time. But for the moment, I already have my specific. I already have this app set up, and it does take a bit of time to go move it across. The actual moving the actual file from the actual from your computer to your actual device. With Android, it is slightly easier. You can use something like Dropbox or your Google Drive. Actually move across the actual database backups to here. Then you can import them. With iOS devices, it does become slightly more complex because there you need to do it through iTunes in order to go get the best, in order to go move it across correctly. Next up, we have advanced settings, which if I go and I switch that off, you will see it. You actually need to enter in a specific server address there. Whereas if I go and I turn that on, you'll see I need to enter in a specific address. Otherwise, if I turn it off, you will see that I need to go and that over here it has the enable SSL option, as well as the server address, where I can just type in the IP address here. Next, before I get to the API token, one of the things that you can do is go and click check server connectivity. This will go and open up a separate screen, where it will go and check your API health status. This works in much the same way that your API health check on your actual management console works, but it goes over here. This is actually on the device. And this is used to go and actually determine, is your device actually connecting to the correct place and to the correct server. And finally, please don't forget save. Right? If you've made any changes here and you don't click save and you click back, they will be erased. So finally, we get down to the bit I said I'll come back to, which is the API token. Now, this actually leads me quite conveniently back to the management console. So I select retail configuration, POS, Mobile POS, and in this case, edit. Now, this over here is the actual setup of Mobile POS that I would do, including things like my API, including things like my payment processes, POS types, stores, retail profiles, and things like this over here. The hardware ID is gathered when you actually connect the mobile point of sale to the actual system. It will generate that then, and the same with the API token, which will then go and be passed across to the actual mobile point sale. I also have a custom series I can create over here for things such for my customers. And then finally, I have my scan configuration option. Now, if you want, I can go show you this at the end. But to be honest, if I go and I click that button, it would then go and show me something like this. A specific QR code would then go and load in all of these settings: initialize over the air, advanced settings, enable SSL, and it saves you a lot of time. Because instead of actually having to go and thumb type out things like server addresses, and particularly advanced server addresses, you will then instantly have these things transported into the actual server settings, and from there you can either register or, well, once you've registered, you can then just choose to initialize over the air. So it saves a lot of time and work, and makes it far easier to go and initialize. Okay. The final point that I do want to show, final point on the server settings screen, is the upload database. Now, the upload database over here, this specific button over here is if you're going to upload a database for support. They can then go and action it as they would need to do, and figure out if there are any problems with it. Next up, I have configuration. Now, the configuration differs between Android and iOS, because there are different. We have tested different parts of the we have tested different devices with each of these systems, and unfortunately, some of the devices that are compatible with iOS are not compatible. Well, they won't work with the Android one, and vice versa. but fortunately some of them are. A lot of your Bluetooth devices will work on either, and certainly things such as your socket mobile scanner, which is handheld mobile scanner you can use. Our various payments methods that we've payment gateways and text that we've integrated to, including Handpoint and Ingenico. Next up, we actually come to the printer settings, and this is where you can set something like a network printer, where it would get printed to. A Wi-Fi printer, which actually has a little something hidden underneath, which is you can also get a Wi-Fi printer that is attached to a cash drawer. Next up, we have MPOP, and this is Mobile Point of Purchase from Star. It's a new device that they've got. It's Bluetooth capable. You just need to go and plug in a cable and connect via Bluetooth to it. It supports both iOS and Android, and as we see over here, right, it's got a printer, barcode scanner, and cash drawer all in one. If anyone is interested in the details, I'll provide them at the end of the session. Next up, we also have Bluetooth printers that you can connect to. The entire list of those is listed in the hardware and software guide, if I remember correctly. And finally, you get the test print option, because obviously you do need to go check that it is nice to know everything's working without having to do a sale. Next up, we have language. Now, unlike in iVend, where we do list a lot of languages that are not necessarily part of iVend or do not actually have language setting in them, over here, these are the languages that are available in the actual mobile point of sale. And you'll see one over here, right at the bottom, marked custom. So, if what this means is that we can actually load up a specific, we can actually load up a language that is not actually listed here. And in order to do that, we use a file, something like this. It looks something like this. As you can see, it's a straightforward text file, and this is the actual mappings between the actual fields over here on the left, and well, in this particular case, this is setting it to language E and US, but field over here, and what it's actually going to say over there. Now, for the moment, this is just the English localization strings that I have. To give you an idea of what it would look like with, say, Chinese, there we go. So here you can go see that we have translated across. You'll see simplified Chinese is an option in there, but this is another one that we can do, and this is just an example of some of the actual characters that can be loaded in. All right. Okay, so after that, we also have things like our email configuration, whether you're using a custom layout receipt, and which product mode, which mode you're going to be in when you're adding the product for when you open it up. And you'll see more about what I mean a bit later once we actually go through these. So I will show you this in a second once we get into the actual transactions. Next up we have is your synchronization settings. Up top we have auto validate transaction, which will go and validate the actual transaction itself against the server, go and make sure that it actually is correct according to the actual rules of promotions and the rest of it on the server. You can also set an auto sync and on or off, and we can also go set a specific time if it's either a fixed time or a fixed interval. Things to remember when you are setting the automatic synchronization is that it will actually pop up a message inside the mobile point of sale itself and tell you that it needs to synchronize. Once it is synchronizing, it will actually lock the point of sale. So depending on exactly how you want to go and set up your system, you might just want to be careful of that, because if you have it popping up every 15 minutes to go and synchronize and it's locking the system, that may cause issues further down the line. Data purge. This is for when this is after a specific period of time. If the database is getting a bit big, you can go and set a data purge on it to just purge your basic transaction, your things like your transaction history. So it's not an actual purging of the actual master data that's in there. It's just to go clear out the things that can go and slow down your database. And then you can also set your synchronization record limit. Finally, we have our synchronization, and it'll tell you when the last synchronization was. This is if you want to manually synchronize, you can come along here, click synchronize. It will then go through. And if you're really curious, you can have a look at the log, which will then give you exactly what's been going on over here. As you can see, we haven't got very much that's been synchronized at the moment. Finally, we can go and click back. So, with that all in mind, that is a fairly basic way on how to go set up actual point of sale. Please remember as well, in your management console, once you have set up your POS setup, you do need to go and set up your till, your master till as well. Because otherwise it will not regard it as an active till in the system. So that is something to go, and all of this, and remember, all of your settings in the management console should be complete before going and doing the actual setups on the actual device itself. It makes it far easier trying to have to go and figure out which step has been missed. Okay, so now that we've done all of that, let's actually go along and log in to the actual point of sale itself. As you see, I get an alert in case my business and current date are mismatched. In this particular case, I think we'll allow it. One of the first things I do want to point out to you is the green online button up here. This means that I am actually connected to the server. It does mean that I will be able to go validate my sales against the actual transactions that take place. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our add product menu. And if you remember, one of the options I had was what exactly was displayed. Scan. In this case, it'll go show. In this case, I'll show my camera. At the moment, nothing much to see. It's lying down. List view, like you see over here. The button panel, like we're familiar with. And then finally, we also have the catalog view. You can go and swipe to go and actually change to go and actually show the different pictures over here. This can help the customer, using this particular approach, can help the customer make a decision on exactly what they want to actually see or purchase. So let's add one of these to the actual, to our purchase over here. So over here, we've got our blue arrow. If we click on that, we will actually get the line item information that we can edit if necessary, including things of adding salespeople as we might need to. Once you've done that, once again, remember to save, otherwise it will be lost. From here, we can also go and click on our cash customer, or click on customer edit. Oh, there we go. And you can go and edit the customer information as you might need to, entering in things like addresses and phone numbers. You can also edit on the sale itself and enter in customer reference numbers, email, salesperson, discounts for overall, and loyalty ID. Now, if for instance I've made a mistake and this particular customer doesn't want to go and purchase this, I can swipe. One of the other things I can do is I can click on it and it will show me the item details. See if we can get this to come through. If I swipe like this, you should have the delete option will appear, which means that I can actually delete the line straight from the actual purchase itself. I'm going to go back to my button panel and just select. There we go. All right, and we can see that we've added one of these to the system. Let's go over here to total. At which point it will validate the transaction and check for any promotions and check for things such as promotions and apply them if necessary. Over here I've got my tender types, and these tenders can be the same as the ones that I use in the store, or they can be separate ones that I can set up specific for the mobile POS if I am that way inclined. Let's go with cash. I get my discounts and surcharges that I can apply over here. And after that, I can click complete. And this over here will then trigger, the print. You can also have the option to email the receipt, and then finally get the option for new transaction. Which will take us back to this screen over here. Now at this particular screen, we actually have the ability to go and select exactly what sort of transaction we're going to do, be it sales, refunds, special orders, special order cancellations as the case might be, initiate laybys, gift certificates, coupon issues, fulfillments, quotations, and preview loyalty, preview transactions, and transaction server search if we've got our transaction server engaged. On the side over here, we also have the option to go and search for our customers or add a new one, as the case might be. I'm going to go scroll down. And in this case, let's have a look at Edward Robinson. Over here, we have the option to go and edit his details as we see fit to go, or as we might need to over time, as well as entering in things such as shipping addresses and billing addresses. Finally, the user-defined fields that we might have set up in iVend will pull through over here at the bottom of the screen. Well, there we go. We also have the option to search by customer name or by phone number. Okay. So if we return to our slides, right, as I mentioned earlier, we do have our online and offline mode. Right. Offline mode obviously will be automatically initiated whenever it loses connection, so it can continue on trading. Just obviously there are certain features and functions that will not carry on with it, and I will come to some of those a bit later in the actual system. But for the moment, so long as it is connected, it's well, if you get it connected, you get the full range of actual transactions and setups. If it's disconnected, there are some that won't work, but that of course is understandable. Right. So, like I showed you, we can go and view and edit existing customers, create new customers, and also we can select a customer and then do an actual transaction. From the actual, we can select items for the actual transaction, either by scanning using a barcode, using a device camera, or the actual barcode scanner. Click buttons, or we can also edit the actual line items of the item. So these are the different things that we can set over there, including either suspending or voiding transactions. Now, when you suspend a transaction, that means you also need ways of going and retrieving it. So, before we get onto that screen, let's go and suspend and retrieve a transaction. I'm going to go select Edward Robinson, and we're going to do a special order. You'll see over there it marks a transaction special order. Let's go and select a couple of these. As well as one of these, I think. Or let's go 2. At this particular point in time, he may decide that he may get one of those flashes of insight of, oh wait, I've forgotten something. At which point we can then suspend the sale. Are you sure you want to suspend the current transaction? Yes. And then he can go off, find the thing that he's forgotten, and meanwhile we can continue on with the actual transactions with other people's transactions, as the case may be. However, once he comes back, we get the option to go and revive that specific transaction. Come down to preview transaction, and we'll see over here that this specific transaction ID has been suspended. So we can select it, preview recall, and here we are again. We can continue the actual transaction as if we'd just taken a small moment in time for him to go fetch his things. We can also set things such as the advance. Now, in a sales order, we can also set things such as the advance amount, if there is one, to be taken, as well as delivery location. So let's select our total. He's going to be paying with cash, I think. Save. Complete. Repeat. Now, earlier I gave you a small glimpse of a slide that showed you some of the differences between online and offline, specifically with regards to the tender types. These tender types are also, tender types mean that you cannot, for instance, in offline mode, accept credit cards and debit cards, whereas in online mode, you'll obviously be able to go and connect through to the credit card providers or debit cards, and be able to go and process a specific transaction. Obviously, cash and check are available online as well. Now, your transaction payments and your receipt printing from here can be set to either your thermal receipts, 2-inch or 3-inch paper size, using for your Bluetooth mobile printers. The Bluetooth mobile printers that we have tested with are listed in the hardware and software guide, as well as you can print an A4 receipt on Wi-Fi printers, such as I've already shown. Finally, you also get the option to email the transaction receipt. So over here we can, in the actual transaction selection, we can go and preview certain transactions, like we saw, and we can also see we can also do our special order and lay-by scenarios, as well as recalling suspended transactions. Now, one of the things that I know a lot of people are very interested in asking is about the data replication between the handheld and the actual server itself. So here we actually have a nice handy screen. We can actually go and explain what is transferred at which point in time between the actual mobile device and the server. We get live synchronization on things such as transaction posting, customer edit or new. This obviously assumes that you are in online mode. I see we have a question. Good day, Pam. I see you ask, are you planning on having offline mode for credit cards? The problem for the moment, the problem is that if we don't have any internet, that's really where the problem is if there is no internet to go and actually connect, then it becomes a bit of a problem to go and actually process online or offline, process offline credit cards. I know that there are various solutions out there for it. That is something that we would maybe have a look at. It also depends on the actual scenario that it was based on. But for the moment, I don't actually know of any specific ones. Yes, I see that you say you can hold the transaction, then when the internet is connected back, it processes the credit card. I have heard of this scenario before. Unfortunately, for the moment, because we would normally be going and actually processing this through the actual setup on the iVend server, we wouldn't normally go and look at it that way. It is something that we can put forward, and we can have a look at going and incorporating into the system. All right. Well, it's good to know at least some people are awake, and I haven't. It's good to know they haven't put you all to sleep. So, moving on. Oh, one more. No problem, Pam. So on that note, the scheduled synchronization is for things such as updating changes or inventory updates to the actual system itself. So this is this is actually from the iVend server to the mobile device, and this is one of the things that does take a bit longer to go and actually process through. The idea behind it is we don't want to continuously bombard the actual mobile device with a lot of information, because it could because obviously in various places you may be operating on, for instance, 3G or various data services which charge for data, and unlike a LAN where it is a LAN, or if you're on Wi-Fi, or even if you're on Wi-Fi sometimes, that being free is far easier to control, far easier to have unlimited data going backwards and forwards. Whereas in mobile, we want to try and keep that limited as much as we can. And over here, we have the scheduled synchronization from the mobile device to the iVend server, things such as customer updates right there. And you'll see over here if the application is running online, or if a failure occurs while with the live synchronization itself. Okay. Now, like you saw earlier, this goes and connects all the way through to the cloud. So this is available. This is available with the iVend cloud, and also you can obviously use it with other clouds that as you might need to. So, as I'm sure you know, we do have hundreds of partners across these regions. There is one thing I would like to go and actually show you before we go and we end this specific session, and that is the actual transaction. That is the actual mobile delivery and fulfillment setup. So now, earlier on my tablet, I actually did a special order. So let's go across to my management console and come across to business transactions, mobile POS delivery, and you'll be able to go see different. You'll be able to go see the different transaction IDs as they've come through, and you'll also note that there are different e-commerce IDs over here. So please remember this. Please remember we are omnichannel. We do e-commerce. Comes through and can be delivered by mobile delivery as it may need be. However, I'm going to go select this top one over here with Edward Robinson, and you'll see that I have two items selected on this specific transaction. I'm going to select both. Once I've done that, I can then select my POS that I'm going to go, and my mobile POS that I'm going to assign this to. And I can choose create package. What this will do is it will create a single package with both of these, with both of those items in it, which means that I can go and actually have this delivered by somebody using my mobile point of sale. Let's go back to my tablet screen, scroll down, and in this specific case, I actually want to go show you some of the transactions and the coding that happens in the background when we do a synchronization. Synchronize. Here we go. And you'll see if I click log, it will go list the different transactions that are then being inserted in and being successfully updated. Let's log in. I'm going to void this specific sale because I actually want to get across over here to fulfillment. And we'll see over here, I've got a couple of different packages that are going across to Edward Robinson in this case. He's bought rather a lot of them. I click on the little blue circle and I'll be able to go see his customer details. I have the option over here to actually call him using the device, or if I click on the little red swizzle stick, I can actually get a map to where he is. And if I really want, I can even click give me directions. So I think it might take me a bit long to drive there, to be honest. Once I've gone and done that and checked that he's at home, so I can actually go and deliver the package. I can select the transaction ID. Add it to the transaction. Click the total. And he'll be able to go pay me the outstanding balance due on the actual transaction itself. Finally, at the end, he can sign signature system. Or in this case, I'll just do it for him. And there we go, payment complete. Okay. For everyone still awake and attentive enough, we now come to our question and answer session. Well, our question and answer part of the session. So if anyone is interested in going and asking any questions, please put your hand up or ask questions in the question box. Or if you want, I can also unmute you and you can ask them on air. Okay. And do we have any questions? Okay, I've either bored everyone to sleep or I'm an awesome teacher and everybody understood everything that I just showed them. Okay, we have, yes, okay, one question, here we go. No questions, thank you, Azarius. Not bored. Thank you, Steve. I'm glad I was at least mildly entertaining. Yeah. All right. All right. I do see one question, which is, does extensibility work in the add-on, in the actual mobile POS? For the moment, no. There are, because of the way mobile POS works, and because it's published to specific stores and people like Apple and Apple in particular and Google need to go and actually review the actual code before they post it. It does mean that having add-ons or things running in the background that latch onto it is a bit of a problem. It really depends on what sort of situation you're in. However, I am sure that if you contact your local manager consulting, they will be able to go guide you and help you with what would be the best option as to how to go and resolve the problem. All right, okay. And on that note, I would like to, unless there's anything else, and I don't see too many other questions popping up, I would like to end the session and just say thank you so much for coming and listening to me drone on about Mobile POS. I hope you did enjoy it, or at least learn one or two small new things that it can do. But in the meantime, feel free to go and look at the website. And if there are any questions, please feel free to contact us. We will be more than happy to go and answer them as best we can. Thank you.